The first thing I want to establish for you is this, that the most valuable thing in the world is the truth. It is the most valuable thing in the world. Winston Churchill, talking about all that goes on in warfare, made the comment that the most valuable thing in the world is the truth. He said, in fact, it is so valuable that oftentimes it is protected by a bodyguard of lies. Natan Sharansky, one time Justice Minister of Israel and one time a victim of the Gulag and put into solitary confinement in the former Soviet Union. When he went back to the Soviet Union some years ago, along with his wife, he asked if he could revisit the prison where he was housed. And it was in solitary for many, many years, I think. And he left his wife outside because he said, I want to go in here alone. Because it was here I really found myself, all alone, with no outside voices. And when he came out, he asked if he could go and lay a wreath at the grave of Andrei Sakharov, the man who gave the Soviets the atomic bomb, because he wanted to make a point. He went to the grave, and after he laid the wreath, Sharansky said this. He said, Mr. Sakharov, the physicist, made this comment before he died. He said, I often thought that the most powerful weapon in the world is the atomic bomb. Quoting Sakharov. I often thought that the most powerful weapon in the world is the atomic bomb. He said, I have changed my mind. The most powerful weapon in the world is not the atomic bomb. The most powerful weapon in the world is the truth. That is only true, I might tell you, if life is not merely temporal, but eternal as well. What is the point if you tell the truth in your 80 years and 10, but lose your life in the process and there is nothing beyond the grave? You only believe the truth to be most powerful and most valuable if in this thing we call time, the end is pushed aside and there is an eternal scene that brings all judgment and brings all justice and consummates love and brings a triumph out of the truth. So if the truth is the most powerful and the valuable, most valuable thing in the world, then eternity has to be invoked in order to justify that very statement. Now, I want to read for you 2 comments and then move on to my second phase, because truth often comes in 2 shades. It comes in the shade of a felt attraction, which can often be a seduction. Think of that for a moment. It often comes as an attraction, which can often be a seduction. Kirk last night was talking about the heinous seduction of pornography, a thing that no man can ever find fulfillment in. No man can ever find fulfillment because it always entices you towards an end feeling which no one person in that own seduction can ultimately deliver. It takes more and more and more nuances and perversions. And so there's an attractiveness that this is where reality lies, but you find out this is where the distortion of reality lies. So there's a truth component to attraction of the eye, but then there's a truth component, listen to me very carefully, to that which conforms to reality as it is. That's why the most incredible statement made some years ago was the ultimate reflection of the postmodern mindset, when the statement was made, it all depends on what is means. Remember that? That was very clever and very deadly to the soul. In what it all depends on what is means. If it all depends on what is means, how do you answer any question in a court of law if you can redefine what is and what was meant all along? So here's 2 quotations. Malcolm Muggeridge said this: in this Sargasso sea of fantasy and fraud, how can I or anyone else hope to swim unencumbered? How can I learn to see through and not with the eye? How can I take off my own motley and wash away my makeup? Raise the iron shutter and put out the studio lights. Silence the sound effects and put the cameras to sleep. Can I ever see the sun rise on Sunset Boulevard and set over Forest Lawn? Can I find real furniture among the studio props? Silence in a discotheque, love in a striptease, read truth off an auto cue, catch it on a screen and chase it on the wings of Muzak, view it in living color with the news, hear it in living sound along the motorways. No, not in the wind that rent the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks, not in the earthquake that followed, nor in the fire that followed the earthquake. But it takes that still small voice, not in the screeching of tires either, the grinding of brakes, or the roar of jets, or the whistle of sirens, or the howl of trombones, the rattle of drums, or the chanting of demo voices. Again and again and again, I'm reminded it's that still small voice, if one could only catch it. He's talking about the voice of God. Where can I find it? Do I find it in studio props? Do I find it on the screen in celluloid? Do I chase it on the wings of Muzak? How do I put the camera to sleep, which can so easily lie and distort? Where can I find it? He said it's in that still small voice, the voice of God. And then he went on to say this: truth is a very beautiful thing, much more so than justice, which is today's pursuit, which easily can put on a false face. In the nearly 7 decades I have lived through the world, it has overflowed with bloodshed and explosions, whose dust has never had time to settle before others have erupted, all in purportedly just causes. The quest for justice continues and the weapons of hatred pile up. But truth was an early casualty. The lies on behalf of which our wars have been fought, our peace treaties concluded. The lies of revolution and counter-revolution. The lies of advertising, of news, of salesmanship, of politics. The lies of the priest in his pulpit, the professor at his podium, the journalist at his typewriter. The lie seems to be stuck like a fishbone in the throat of the microphone. The handheld lies of the prowling cameraman. Ignatius Salone told me once how, when he was a member of the old Comintern, some stratagem was under discussion, and a delegate, the newcomer who had never attended before, made an extraordinary observation that if such and such a statement would be made, it ought not to be made because it wouldn't be true. There was a moment of dazed, stunned silence, and then everyone began to laugh. They laughed and laughed till tears ran down their cheeks and the Kremlin walls seemed to shake. The same laughter echoes in every council chamber and cabinet room. Wherever 2 or more are gathered to exercise authority, it is truth that has died, not God. Now there, he is not talking about mere seduction of the eye. He's talking about what conforms to reality as it is. And he says the lie seems to be stuck like a fishbone in the throat of the microphone. And so what I say to you as I begin my talk, the most important question about God hinges on a fundamental question about truth. What is true? You can make an argument for almost anything you want to in this world. You could even make an argument that square circles actually exist. And so the question of God oftentimes can get bogged down in argument. But there are some inescapable realities which the person running from God cannot run far enough away from. Now, if you've read my book, Can Man Live Without God?, which was a defense of the existence of God and the Christian faith presented at the Harvard Law School many years ago, I remember when I wrote that book in '93, the publishers came to me and begged me to dumb it down a bit. They said this shelf life won't last more than 2 to 3 months with a book like this. That was in '93. It is still in print 16 years later, and evidently I shot my wad in that one because it's done the best of any of the other books I wrote after that. And in that, I presented some arguments in the defense of God's existence, and they can get stronger and stronger. I just want to give you 3 simple propositions. I wish I could say to you they are mine. They are not. They are borrowed and recontoured a bit. But Professor Dallas Willard, who is teaching philosophy at USC, was brilliant in this argument, and he's written extensively on this. Professor Dallas Willard gives what he calls a 3-stage argument that points you to the existence of God. Centuries ago, we would talk of proofs for God's existence. We had a thing called the cosmological argument, which moved from cause to effect. And if the universe is an effect, the only cause that could explain it would be an infinite, all-powerful being. Thomas